Last week, my girlfriend and I stopped at an antique store we often visit, and on the ground there was this big metal case that caught my eye because it had the camera brand Canon written on it. Now it's no secret that I really like vintage things and cameras, so I had to check it out, but it wasn't actually quite what I was expecting. It was actually a really old projector. I didn't know much about projectors, but it had the model name on it, Canon P-8, so I quickly looked it up to find a page on Canon's official museum page saying it was their first 1958 8mm movie projector. And it was sitting there for 20 bucks. I looked it over to make sure nothing was damaged or missing, and it all looked to be in mint condition. But I still didn't know much about projectors or 8mm film in general, so I ended up just going home and researching it more. There was almost nothing about this thing online though. Everything I did find was about later Canon projectors, and the only thing that did mention it was Canon's own history page, which only gave a brief description and a single image. There were only 3 other pictures I could find online at all, which were from an older eBay listing, so it really seemed this thing was forgotten to time. I also did some research on 8mm projectors as well, just to get a basic idea of how they worked, and I also looked into the 8mm film format to see if it was something I'd be interested in getting into. The format was invented in 1932 by Kodak and later replaced by Super 8mm film in 1965, though regular 8mm didn't die out until later. Both films were often used for home movies. The main downside for me was that 8mm films are silent, which I really wish they had sound, but still, otherwise this was perfect. The time period of the 50s and 60s would have been really interesting to see through old home movies. So the next day I went back for it, and while I was in the store I plugged it in real fast just to see if it worked, and it did. So I ended up getting it. While there, I also picked up a couple random film reels I found for $4 each. I was really hoping that they'd be filmed in Bellingham back in the day, or at least somewhere in Washington. Now to start with the projector, this thing just looks old. It's heavy metal and gray paint. It's very 50s utilitarian rather than luxurious and stylized. Nothing like the smooth curves iconic of the time. Like, I have a lot of vintage stuff, but this definitely stands out from them. Now to actually figure out how to work the thing, I only had the one Canon picture and another video online of a different projector, but it seems simple enough. Film goes in one end and comes out the other. To start, you fold out the arms and place an empty reel and the movie reel on it. Then you place the film on the first guide gear. Run the motor for a second, swing out the lens, and slide the film on the rail, then close it. Then you place the film on the second guide gear below. And finally, you run it through the other wheels to the take-up reel and wrap it to stay. Now, to actually operate the projector, the left knob controls the motor and the light. It's just roll backward, roll forward, and turn on the projection lamp. Essentially play and rewind. All you need to do is turn the motor on, then let it run for a moment to get going, then you flip the light and now you have a picture. You'll also notice it's very noisy. But again, since there's no audio, I guess it doesn't matter that much anyways. It's kind of crazy how it all works though. The film reel is just a really long stream of photos, and the light from the projector shines through the film and some lenses to enlarge it on the wall, flickering each frame to animate. There are a few things you can adjust to if you need. The right knob controls the play speed of the movie. You may also have to focus the lens if the image seems blurry. Also, if the frame seems to cut off, you can turn this on the front to realign it. You can also turn the front knob to angle the projector up or down. All this might sound like a lot though, but it's really not that bad, and once you do have all the adjustments made, it's good to go and doesn't really need to be tweaked again. One annoying thing is when you are done, you have to rewind the reel by running the motor in reverse. But this unfortunately takes the same amount of time as playing it forward, since it's literally running it backwards. Like, if you ever thought VHS was bad back in the day, this is for sure worse. On top of that, it's still just as noisy as before. The projector's cool, but the actual highlight though is the movies. The image from the film actually looks surprisingly good, especially for being over half a century old. Like, I've seen worse video today. It's a bit on the soft side at points, but the color's beautiful. It's warm and lively, matching perfectly with the grain. It's a very surreal look that's iconic for vintage film, but it also looks almost dreamlike. Watching these old home films is both strange and surprisingly interesting. Like, there's no sound or really that much exciting going on, but there's a sense of wonder to it all. Like, you really have no idea what you're about to see, who's in it, where or when it is, or the story behind it. But these are past lives that are otherwise forgotten to time. Like, it wasn't cheap to shoot personal video back then, but these are moments that someone thought was worth capturing. It's a cool glimpse into another lifetime that looks so far removed from our own because of the time and film, but it's also still very real and relatable. And it's kind of weird in a way to be watching these private videos of people who probably aren't even alive today. Like, I doubt when they filmed these they had any idea some random person would dig them up and watch them decades later, but it's still an unintended time capsule or authentic archive of life back then. Obviously, not every reel is going to be interesting, but the potential and mystery is definitely something to look forward to when finding a new one. If you're interested in seeing the first reel I got, I'll be showing and talking about it in the next video. And I also bought a bunch more on eBay. They seem to be about travel and vacation. So as I collect more, I'll be sharing those too. It's also really cool. I got to be one of the first people to document this Canon projector, especially for being their first 8mm one. I guess it's just one of those obscure things lost to time, like many of these home movies. It makes me wonder how many other things pre-internet have been forgotten and might not ever be remembered. I'm really lucky this projector happened to show up at the antique store for such a good price, especially since everything worked. Because of the coincidence of me finding it, this projector got its time to shine once again.